Hello again, Steve here, and today I wanted to talk about where I believe diversity is our strength, an area of our lives, shall we say. That would be in to do with our livelihood in this case. You see, if we have just one or a few people or organizations or whatever that we trade with, right, that we work with and we get compensated for our work, then that's kind of set. That's the number of people we have. And especially if you're employed or if we're employed, that means we have one individual or institution or whatever we trade with. So if we lose that customer, that individual, whatever it is, we get fired, in other words, commonly termed, we are we lost our customers. We lost 100% of our customers with the loss of one customer. So as we can imagine in that case, it's probably a good idea to have another log in the fire, if you will. Especially today with things being so mobile and things changing so quickly, it's good to diversify, I think, a little bit in terms of our those we trade with, to have the ability to trade with others. So that's just a comment, and it seems to make sense, but far be it for me to give an answer on how to do that well, because I'm not the greatest expert in it, although I am a bit of a student of certain people who I believe very strongly are. And these people are basically the master marketers, the notable marketers in the world. They can write something on a website, in a letter or whatever, and it gets people to respond by the thousands. And these are basically practical psychologists. They understand what it is. They understand how to dig down into the psyche of an individual and find what it is that they want. Right? So that's important, because if we're going to diversify those we work for, we can't just go with with a pointed gun at them and tell them to give us some money. We actually have to provide something that they're willing to exchange for. There has to be a win-win there, right? There has to be, I'm going to give you this, and in exchange you're going to give me that. And you want this and I want that. And then it's a win-win. So it's perfect. Now these names that I'm going to drop here, you can just do searches for them and look at what it is that they do. So Gary Halbert, Jay Abraham, Dan Kennedy, John Carlton, these are people who have been known for years. Some of them have passed away by now, and notably Gary Halbert. But these are people who hold no punches. They make very, very often, especially Gary, makes no apologies for his tough love that he gives to people, which is that he's got very, very strong, not so much opinions, but observation of what has worked, and so we can learn a lot from him. Now, in order for us to diversify, this I go into my opinion area here, but it's based on what I've learned, not only from these guys, but the School of Hard Knocks as well. I mean, I have had a few businesses and a few business successes as well. And certainly I've had many, many jobs over the years. And as an example, what I found out is that resumes largely don't work. I've had lots and lots of jobs, and never did I get a job from a resume. So that might be a discussion for another time. But anyway, um, to differentiate ourselves then, because that's what we have to do, right? In order for us to provide service A or goods A to a certain individual, if others might be vying for that individual's resources, then we have to differentiate ourselves from the others. We have to make ourselves as good as we can in our presentation, right? So, how do we do that? Well, one of the ways we find through studying those who are really good at it is they have a way of finding out what it is that the people want, what it is that the other individual people want. And the way they do that, it sounds like a roundabout way, but because there's something behind what they want. And what's behind what they want is a pain, right? It sounds a bit harsh, maybe, because we might rather say, oh, it's a distraction or it's a disturbance or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a pain. It's either mild or it's acute. And because of that, out of that comes the desire, the floating up of the desire. And if we do that, if we're able to figure out some way, somehow, what people's pains are, and we have the ability to help them overcome that, we've got a really good match, right? Because we've found a market and we found a match. Gary Halbert, for example, one time he tells this story of he tells this story about something he used to do in his seminars. He'd ask everybody to write down on a piece of paper that if they were all in the room, if everybody in the room was going to have a competition to see who could set up a hot dog stand and therefore see who could have the winningest hot dog stand, all other things being equal, what would be their most important thing to get right? And he'd give them a few minutes, and then he'd ask them for what their opinions were, what they wrote down. And people would write things like, oh, the greatest hot dog, sourcing the best bun for the thing, making sure they had the best relish, made sure they had the best location, the latest hot dog stand, good advertising, all of these things. And Gary Halbert then, after they've all said this, he says, how about I tell you the one thing that I would want, which would whip the pants off all of you? And he pauses, and he finally says, I'll take a starving crowd over anything. And isn't that brilliant? Because Gary, this intrinsic, or this very practical psychologist, gets right to the point of what motivates people the most. See, you can have the greatest hot dogs and the greatest buns and the greatest everything. You have the greatest product. But if people in the area that are coming past your thing are just coming from a restaurant somewhere else, we all know what it's like. When we're not hungry anymore, the greatest food has no appeal to us. Almost no appeal to us. But if you've got a starving crowd, you don't have to have the greatest stuff, because you've got people who are already in some sort of a state of pain or mild pain that they want to have alleviated. And so he's pointing right to the critical thing that we have to focus on if we want to diversify. We have to find out first what it is that these people want. And Gary Halbert has this thing he calls AIDA. I'm not sure if he's come up with it, might be one of these other guys that I mentioned, but it's AIDA, it's an acronym, and it stands for attention, interest, desire, and action. And okay, the attention is if we know through our studies and what have you, what it is that's paining people. He uses this. He talks a lot about headlines, and in the headline, we're capturing the attention. That's the attention getting, capturing the attention, but it's based on what comes next, which is the interest, right? He uses this example of, because, just as a sideline, as a diversion here, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter to a great extent how long the headline is. It could be long or it could be short, but as long as it gets to the point. For example, he uses the example of hemorrhoids, exclamation point. If you write that in a headline and somebody with hemorrhoids sees it, it's very, very interesting. So it's attention getting, right? This is why the word sex, you look it up and it's the most commonly clicked word, I believe, or searched word on the internet, and always has been for the, never mind internet, but beforehand. And the reason is because the vast majority of people are sex deprived the vast majority of the time. I mean, if they just had sex, Just like if you just ate a big meal, probably the word sex is not as appealing. But if one hasn't had it for weeks or months at a time, then it's very appealing. So it's attention, right? And it appeals to the interest. Use the example of hemorrhoids, right? The hemorrhoid that the person has is their pain. That's their interest. Their interest is, how could I leave? So just seeing the word gets their interest. But we're putting out that message. That's the attention getter. Right? The more we know. So somebody in a field who knows something about that, they put that out there. They put out an attention getter to appeal to the interest. And then the interest in that messaging has to convert into helping that one build the desire. The desire for what? The desire for the alleviation of that problem. Right? Take any topic. Young guys who want to learn how to date. Well, attention could be something along the lines, how to understand girls. Right? And that is an attention getter that is evoking the pain which is in them that they don't understand girls, which then rolls into through the process of opening up that desire for girls, as an example. And then it must at a certain point lead to action towards that end. And of course, in the case of guys wanting girls, well, hopefully they want action down the road with girls who want action. So, but this is the formula that he uses for actually making deals with people. In other words, what he calls selling, right? Getting the attention, through that interest, converting that into a desire, and getting them to take action. Now, this is related to something that I've talked about for a number of years, and of course, there's nothing new under the sun, so it's not surprising that it would be related, because these things are, what has worked for many people is similar to what works for others. And some of you have seen it before, Free Your Inner Genie book, which I say that this information was banned on Google, and it was. So anyway, on page 98, I show a graph here which I call the continuum of advancement. And basically what it is, there's other steps in there, but what it is basically, it's a chart of human, the way it is that we do everything. And it's originally, I thought it started off with desire and ended up with at least the goal of achievement of what we want, the desired results, in other words. And in that process, there's action as well. So there is the desire all the way to action, which is in AIDA as well. But I didn't realize when I originally conceived that, I didn't think about it much, but now it makes a lot more sense that behind desire is that pain, right? And that's where the interest really gets provoked, right? That's where the attention and interest gets provoked. If we can help people to discover what their pains are, to really look at them clearly, then it's easier to identify what's desired. What is the possible solution for that? And then if we get them to take action, which is, in our case with our diversity of our trading partners, if you will, if we can get them to take action by involving us as in our products and service or whatever, I would actually help them to alleviate the pains that they have and therefore achieve their desires. We will be very, very successful and never be out of work. In fact, it's the greatest job security that there would be, because now we're providing real services that have real value to real people. And when that happens, we get lots of word of mouth recommendations, because we're not just some sort of a win for us and I don't care about you kind of a trader. We are a win-win trader, absolutely. So something to think about anyways is diversifying this is an example of where diversity is a strength. Yeah, so that would be my point there. Steve here again. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share. Comment in the box below and subscribe. Absolutely subscribe. I see some new subscribers coming in. I'm really appreciative of that. Let's get this moving. And apparently, all the actions that you do, like subscribing, and share, and what have you, they they I don't know, algorithms, they promote, they help promote the message if you like it. So if you could take that action, if you have, if I've gotten your attention and I've sparked your interest and helped you identify your desire, please take the action and like, subscribe, and share. Talk again soon. Bye for now.